Hello, my sweet peas and sugar dumplings. Welcome to another story time with Shiningnathan. I'm glad you're here, and today we're switching gears to go to an old school classic that many of you may not have read. And so I'm here to read it for you. It's by Anton Chekhov, and it's called The Orator. Now, if you followed me here organically, I'm glad you're here. And if you followed me here from TikTok, baby doll, welcome. I am also glad you're here. Now, please forgive me if you hear any background sounds. It is currently summer in Lisbon, so I have to have the windows open because I ain't got no AC. So you can pause here to go get some snacks, get a little drink, or set me down so you can listen to this while you go about your day. As always, I love you, and so let's get into The Orator by Anton Chekhov. One fine morning, the collegiate assessor, Kirill Ivanovich Biblinov, who had died of the two afflictions so widely spread in our country, a bad wife and alcoholism, was being buried. As the funeral procession set off from the church to the cemetery, one of the deceased colleagues, called Poplovsky, got into a cab and galloped off to find a friend, one Grigory Petrovich Zaboinkin, a man who, though still young, had acquired considerable popularity. Zaboinkin, as many of my readers are aware, possesses a rare talent for impromptu speechifying at weddings, jubilees, and funerals. He can speak whenever he likes, in his sleep, on an empty stomach, dead drunk, or even a high fever. His words flow smoothly and evenly like water out of a pipe, and in abundance. There are far more moving words in his oratorical dictionary than there are beetles in a restaurant. He always speaks eloquently and at great length, so much so that on some occasions, particularly at merchants' weddings, they have to resort to assistance from the police to stop him. "I came to find you, old man," began Poplovsky, finding him at home. "Put on your hat and coat this minute and come along. One of our fellows is dead. We're just setting him off for the other world, so you must do a bit of cavalry by way of farewell to him. You are our only hope. If it had been one of the smaller fry, it would not have been worth troubling you, but you can see it's the secretary, a pillar of the office in a sense. It's awkward for such a whopper to be buried without a speech." "Oh, the secretary?" yawned Zaboinkin. "You mean the drunken one?" "Yes, there will be pancakes at lunch. You'll get your cab fare. Come on, dear chap. You spoke on some rigmarole like a regular Cicero at the grave, and what gratitude you'll earn." Zaboinkin readily agreed. He huffed up his hair, cast a shade of melancholy over his face, and went out into the street with Poplovsky. "I know your secretary," he said as he got into a cab. "A cunning rogue, and a beast. The kingdom of heaven be his, such as you don't often come across." "Come, Grisha, it's not a thing to abuse the dead." "Of course not. Automori nihil bene. But still, he was a rascal." The friends overtook the funeral procession and joined it. The coffin was borne along slowly so that before they reached the cemetery, they were able 3 times to drop into a tavern and imbibe a little of the health of the departed. In the cemetery came the service by the graveside. The mother-in-law, the wife, and the sister-in-law, in obedience to custom, shed many tears. When the coffin was being lowered into the grave, the wife even shrieked, "Let me go with him," but did not follow her great husband into the grave, probably recollecting her pension. Waiting till everything was quiet again, Zaboinkin stepped forward, turned his eyes on all present, and began. "Can I believe my eyes and ears? Is it not a terrible dream, this grave? These tear-stained faces, these moans and lamentations? Alas, it is not a dream, and our eyes do not deceive us. He whom we have only so latently seen, so full of courage, so youthful, fresh and pure, who so latently before our eyes, like an unwearying bee bore his honey to the common hive of the welfare of the state, he is turned now to dust, to inanimate mirage. Inexorable death has laid his bony hand upon him at the time when, in spite of his bold age, he is still full of bloom of strength and radiant hopes. An immeasurable loss. Who will fill his place for us? Good government servants we have many, but Prokofy Isopich was unique. To the depths of his soul, he was devoted to his honest duty. He did not spare his strength, but worked late into the night and was disinterested, impervious to bribes. How he despised those who, to the detriment of the public interest, sought to corrupt him, who by the seductive goods of his life strove to draw him to betray his duty. Yes, before our eyes, Prokofy Isopich, can't get that name right, would divide his small salary between his poorer colleagues. And you have just heard yourselves the lamentations of the widow and orphans who lived upon his alms. Devoted to his good works and his official duty, he gave up the joys of this life and even renounced the happiness of domestic existence. As you are aware, to end the end of his days, he was a bachelor. And who will replace him as a comrade? I can see no one now. That kindly shaven face turned to us with a gentle smile. I can hear now his soft, friendly voice. Peace to thine ashes, Prokofy Isopich. Rest, honest, noble toiler. Zapoikin continued while his listeners began whispering together. His speech pleased everyone and drew some tears, but a good many things in it seemed strange. In the first place, they could not make out why the orator called the deceased Prokofy Isopich when his name was Kirill Ivanovich. In the second, everyone knew that the deceased had spent his whole life quarreling with his lawful wife, and so consequently would not have been called a bachelor. And in the third, he had a thick red beard and had never been known to shave, so no one could understand why the orator spoke of his shaven face. The listeners were perplexed. They glanced at each other and shrugged their shoulders. Prokofy Isopich, continued the orator, looking in with an air of inspiration into the grave. Your face was plain, even hideous. You were morose and austere, but we all know that under that outer husk there beat an honest and friendly heart. Soon, the listeners began to observe something strange in the orator himself. He gazed at one singular point, shifted about uneasily, and began to shrug his shoulders too. And all at once he ceased speaking and gaped with astonishment and turned to Poplovsky. I say, he's alive, he said, staring with horror. Who's alive? Why, Prokofy Isopich. There he stands, by that tombstone. He never died. It's Kirill Ivanovich who's dead. But you told me yourself your secretary was dead. Kirill Ivanovich was our secretary. Oh my God, you've muddled it, you queer fish. Prokofy Isopich was our secretary before. That's true, but 2 years ago he was transferred to the 2nd Division as head clerk. How the hell the devil is one to tell? Why, you stop and go on, it's awkward. Zapoikin turned to the grave, and with the same eloquence continued his interrupted speech. Prokofy Isopich, an old clerk with a clean-shaven face, was in fact standing by a tombstone. He looked at the orator, frowned angrily. Well, you have put your foot into it, haven't you? Laughed his fellow clerk as they turned from the funeral with Zapoikin. Buried a man alive? But it's unpleasant, young man, grumbled Prokofy Isopich. Your speech may be all right for a dead man, but in reference to a living one, it is nothing but sarcasm. Upon my soul, what have you been saying? Disinterested, incorruptible, won't take bribes? Some things can only be said of the living in sarcasm. And no one asked you, sir, to expatiate on my face. Plain hideous, so be it, but why exhibit my countenance in that public way? It's insulting, I say. And that was The Orator by Anton Chekhov. I myself had not read this one before, and it was a delightful little funny one. As always, I'm glad you're here. You can put in the comments which next story you'd like me to read, and if you noticed, I read things within the public domain. So, pick a story, and as long as it's short, I also seem to like this short form content, and I'll read it. A special thank you to all my beautiful patrons on Patreon who make my content possible, who are part of all this, my food I eat, my place I live, and the food my cat eats. If you enjoyed my content, turn on that alert bell, subscribe, and give me a like, and do all the comment things. And if you want to support me, by all means, go to patreon.com/shiningnathan. For as low as $5 a month, you get access to these stories well ahead of time, plus affirmations, and much, much more where I'm building a community there. As always, I love you. Take care. Until next time, my darlings.